Hey everyone. It's the third vlog for Vampires vs. Aliens, placeholder name, TBD, trademark, copyright. Uh, Lots changed since last time. I've refactored some code where I needed to. The passive tree now has notables. That was a cool little thing. I've added a bunch of enemy types. There's some UI components for a health bar, for XP. And yeah, I would say it is officially in a playable state. Very, very basic one, but yeah. I'm gonna start hitting play and then sort of talk about where to from here as we go. So Passageway, as far as I can tell, all seems to work. There is still one known issue where if you have this node, so say you take attack speed, take this, you can't then take this even though it's connected. That is something I plan on looking at, but I will fix that in version 0.2. But for now, yeah, I'll just show you how it works. It is beatable. I don't know if I'm going to beat it because I've tried to make it reasonably hard. PS seems pretty good at the moment. There's definitely, I think in terms of the outright difficulty, I think it's kind of where I'd like the higher difficulties to land. Maybe not the top difficulty, but maybe like medium high, maybe just medium. But I think there's still a long way to go in terms of the balance. I think, for example, these enemies are a little too tanky, which might change before I actually release that now that I've said it out loud. But, there's no ranged attacks. Projectile speed and projectile size, while is cool with notables, by itself isn't that cool. Maybe that's a problem that will get resolved later as we develop more ideas about support nodes. Like I said, that's not in V1, that'll be coming later. Right now we have just the passive tree for the one skill. But yeah, I'm going to be releasing this version to some people that I know, some friends and family, to have a little play. I'll see if they find any bugs with passive not working, or enemies like not working, or the game crashing, but it wasn't because you were at 0 life, things like that. What else? Yeah, I don't want to spoil too much, but that's the main things I'm going to be looking for testing. Is it moment to moment fun? Did they enjoy looking at the passive tree and deciding what to take next? Do they want to see more? And hopefully the answer to that is yes. And if yes, and if the answer is no, then we're going to have to do something about that. But I'm pretty sure it's going to be yes, because at least for me, which, was who I was building this for, and then I'm not saying this as an expert game designer, but I imagine it's probably a good idea in general to build a game that you enjoy playing. I found it fun for the brief moments I did. I'm like, I don't know, I didn't know what was optimal to beat the difficulty that I'd set myself. You'll see here that I have a build, so if you're watching this, spoilers, this build does work, or at least to get you to quote unquote beat the game. Obviously, there's no menu or victory screen. There's also no sound. That's something I really want to put into V2, because that was the number one thing I think I noticed when playtesting. I'm like, man, I just wish there were some pickup sounds, a nice level up sound. I would like to know that the enemies are actually taking damage, because there's no flicker effect right at the moment that tells you if you've dealt damage. So you're kind of just sort of stuck assuming that you've dealt damage. You have, because they die and they drop gems, but we've got to figure that out. In terms of the enemy scales, you'll notice that I've got them varying scales. I'm pretty happy with the different scales. I have the fast moving ones a bit smaller. I thought about it, and I was like, I think that makes something like projectile size seem a lot more appealing when the enemies are really small. I may even expand on that later. I'm probably making this look easy, but I failed this a bunch of times, and I haven't really adjusted the difficulty. Just very, very minor things with how much XP drops from the big dudes. It's just practice, to be honest. I figured out what works, and I also know all the timing, so I know what's coming next and what to do about it. Cool. Let's take some damage. But yeah, so that's about it for this blog. I'm probably just going to call it here. I don't want to spoil the boss. But everything's working. The game's working. What's next? So there's a big long list of things that I want to do to this game, but the next goal is we're going to talk about sound. We're going to do support skills, so I've mentioned it before, right? But a huge part of this game will be that when you level up, you can choose between taking passive points and support nodes. That's going to be coming next. And we're going to have a support node, we're going to have a trigger node. So a trigger node is some way of activating a skill other than just clicking the button. So, Path of Exile trigger nodes, triggers like on, for example, on damage taken is a Path of Exile effect. Obviously, we're ripping off that same idea here. So in this game, there's going to be on damage taken. If you take that gem, you put it in one of these nodes, you connect the passive tree to it. What that's going to do is it's going to make your skill fire off whenever you take damage instead of firing off when you click. And I think, there's going to be up to 6 skills. There's going to be some things you can do when you start mixing and matching these things. I also, now thinking about it, need to make sure that... I don't know where I'm going with this. We're probably not going to put a new active skill in the next version. I think these support nodes are going to be a lot of work. But once that's in, that'll be in. In terms of the code, there's not a ton to review. It's just a ton of cleanup. And there's a ton of stuff going into the skill tree. So, branch, if you're interested in it. Basically what's happening is every time a passive node is taken, there's two parts of it that are listening to it. The first is the skill, so this is the blood arrow branch. So for the blood arrow, you take a node in and it says what was that node, and then it applies its effect. But it also passes that node to the parent to apply its effect if there's any effects that are, say, for example, affect all player stats. So for example, if you have a stat that's affecting the player's attack size or the player's attack speed, we do that in the parent one because however that's implemented, that'll be the same regardless of the active skill. So that's sort of the idea there. I think I may revisit some of the structure. I've already thought about a lot about different notables and how they might work, and I think this is going to end up looking quite different, but it's working now and we have notables, and that's pretty cool. So thanks for watching. Hope you found it interesting. And yeah, this is starting to feel like a real game.